Well, it's not quite 4:30. And in a previous recording, which I have placed on the web, I'm told that these people are in the office until 4:30 or later. So the purpose of this video is to show you that no matter what anyone from Iowa Legal Aid tells you, it's not going to happen. When the fix is in, the fix is in. I do not imagine that Mr. Cornea has sent any kind of information to Social Security that they have to respond to, and he refuses to send this information in a way that they cannot ignore. And in the end, I am going to be responsible for that omission. And this is all because of religious intolerance and race hate, because I exposed the Social Security Administration, DHS in general, and the Justice Department in particular for allowing the perpetual enslavement of a child which had been procured by a group of sociopaths through human traffic. I represented this person at a Social Security hearing in 1996. It took almost 3 years to get her file, and what was in that file was so appalling that I had to tell Wanda Butler's story. I had her permission to tell it. I had every relevant document that I needed, and I published some of those documents. And those documents show that for all of this person's life, mandatory reporters refused to get an investigation started which would have stopped her lifelong sexual abuse. These are mandatory reporters. They're supposed to do these things or face 5 years in prison and a stiff fine. And for naming the mandatory reporters who work for both the federal and state governments in this area, I spent 2 years in federal institutions simply for telling the truth. And now Social Security is going to take action against me because they're going to claim that I did not notify them of an address change. When I won Wanda Butler's appeal, I was informed that I would have no more administrative appeal rights, that I wouldn't be able to file an appeal myself, nor would I ever be able to help anybody with their appeals. By the way, since that has happened, I have been helping people with their appeals. I just don't tell the government I'm helping them. And I ask them not to tell the government I'm helping them. And some of those people have had success with their appeals. So far, I've got a 100% win rate with appeals with the Social Security Administration. They didn't like that. They didn't want that to happen anymore. But when I got involved in Wanda's case, when I did an investigation which took 12 years, and before I was completed that investigation, after only 4.5 years, I started to publish the results of that investigation on my website. That's when I created my website. And when I started to cite local law enforcement with helping people sell dope interstate, when I was able to support those statements with the videotaped evidence that the pigs actually are doing this in the little Podunk Junction place where I live, the state responded by attempting to commit me. During the past interim, where I have been publishing my website, stating the truth, and supporting what I'm saying with video and pictorial evidence, the states of Iowa and Illinois have each tried to commit me 3 times. And when I was in federal prison, the federal government tried to commit me. Apparently. I mean, you can't be so delusional that you can aim a video camera at your eye or into your brain and put an image on it. You can't do that. Videotape doesn't lie. And no matter what medium you're using, if you try to alter the recordings you've made, whether they're digital or analog, it leaves artifact. There is no artifact on any of the videos I've made, regardless of the format they were made in. I don't have to alter them. You can see what's happening. And since the time I started, they passed a law in Illinois that you can no longer videotape policemen who happen to be committing public corruption in the public way. That law was made just for me. So one person can make a difference. Hopefully, this series of videos will at least help to prove that I have attempted to personally contact Social Security about a change of address, and that Legal Aid of Iowa has refused to do it in an effective and conclusive way. And time is running out for me. And apparently, Alex Cornea, Lee Hightoff, and the director of Legal Aid of Iowa, a person who will not grant a journalist the answers to just a few questions. I've been trying to get a hold of the director for over 2 years. He won't take a call, he won't answer a question, he won't answer a letter. Meanwhile, I have evidence based on my experience since I began my tenure with the federal government. I've had occasion to document the many, many wrongful and malfeasant things that the Social Security Administration perpetuates against their clients. I've been able to document and publish the fact that the Justice Department knew that a child had been obtained through human traffic and was being used as a masturbatory wash rag, and yet the Justice Department refused to do anything about that, despite the fact that the person who claimed they was this child's mother, there's incontrovertible evidence that this person lied. there's incontrovertible evidence that this person, who eventually was paid in excess of $100,000 of money that was supposed to go to the beneficiary, but it never reached the beneficiary. And this person was appointed the payee 3 decades after that application for payee was filed. And during the very early stages of that, the Justice Department wrote Social Security a letter saying that Ruth Butler should not be a payee, that she obviously isn't the child's mother, that the Justice Department and the Department of Census did a thorough investigation. Of course, from what I know about the Justice Department, the Department of Census, I got to take that with a grain of salt, but they couldn't locate anywhere where a child named Wanda was born to a mother named Ruth Butler. Ruth claimed this was because Wanda was delivered by a midwife. But the fact of the matter is that in every state of the Union, for a long, long time, midwives and OBGYNs, gynecologists, and people who deliver babies are required to put the same information on the same forms and send them to the same courthouse where everybody's birth records are kept. Well, this was never done for a child named Wanda because Wanda isn't the child's name. That child was born to another mother. There's another birth certificate. Wanda's never going to know who her parents were, and the Justice Department didn't want to find out. And the Justice Department allowed Ruth Butler to make false statements on a federal document and neglected to prosecute her because the federal government happens to be involved in Ruth Butler's family-run drug cartel. At this point in time, I believe Ruth Butler is deceased, and those duties in that family drug cartel are being perpetuated by the children that she actually did pump out to be her lieutenants on the street. The two most notable of those at this time would be Linda and Veronica Butler. Of course, the local police won't investigate them because they've already busted people in their houses for continuing to sell narcotics out of those houses, but they never bust the person who that person gets those drugs from, which would be Linda and Veronica. They never bust them for it. As a matter of fact, a contact that I have in the Scott County Courthouse who works for the county attorney, her name is Gail, told me that Linda Butler, and I had to get this information from her because the authorities in Davenport would not let me use a public computer. I didn't have a computer at the time. Wouldn't let me use a public computer, which is especially used for citizens who want to go into the courthouse and check out somebody's criminal record. Everybody got to use that. But when I started to use that computer to check out the criminal history of the people who were raping Wanda Butler, I was approached by two huge pigs who threw me out in the street and told me that I was being barred from the county courthouse simply for using a computer and attempting to get information on people who are paying the pigs off so that they can peddle poison. And the Justice Department knows that's going on too. And the Justice Department knew about what Ruth Butler was doing to Wanda. And the Justice Department didn't care about it because Wanda's black. And if the recent presidential election hasn't proven anything else. It has proven that America is a country that is full of race hate, religious intolerance, and people who just ought to be eliminated. They're un-American. Right, they're just un-American. This country was built on immigrant labor. It was built on slave labor. And the fact of the matter is that the fathers of our country were rapists who raped their slaves. There's lots of black people in this country who are named Washington and Jefferson. There's a reason for that. If you think about it, it'll come to you instantly. But you know, you can't ever say that when George Washington had sex with one of his slaves, or when Thomas Jefferson had sex with one of his slaves, it wasn't consensual. These people were bought and paid for, and they were bought and paid for so they could be used. And they were used in every way by the fathers of our country. So, don't tell me about the fathers of our country, because they made a lot of illegitimate babies. This is Dmitry Ivanovich, aka Jeff Soboroff, with the Naked Truth.